Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Cooper Fantasy. I am of course Cooper Fantasy. This is my Week 10 Sit 'em Start 'em recap video for the 2012-2013 fantasy football season. Again, it's a recap video. You can find my blog online at cooperfantasy.com. That's KOOPA fantasy.com. You can find me on Twitter at @Blackie_Mike. Blackie ends in an IE, not a Y. And finally, find me on share and subscribe to my YouTube videos here, because all that stuff goes a long way in helping me out, guys. Alright, like I said, this is my Week 10 Sit 'em Start 'em recap video for the 2012-2013 season. Let's get right into it. Philip Rivers was my first suggested start of the week for QBs. He was a pretty good one at that. 337 yards, 3 TDs, and a pair of interceptions. Interceptions obviously don't help, but they didn't really do enough to affect him. The 337 yards and 3 TDs made it a good enough game for him for sure. I think it was probably one of his better ones of the season. Only his second 3-touchdown game this season, to be specific. And then my next suggestion was Ryan Fitzpatrick going against New England. He wasn't quite as good. He had the exact same amount of yardage, but only had 2 TDs with 1 interception. But he also had 12 rush yards. They were actually pretty close. I think Rivers outdoes him by about 3 or 4 points. But still, if you started either one of these guys, you probably you're probably pretty satisfied with what they got you. And then Ryan Tannehill, the complete opposite. 217 yards with 3 interceptions for a whole whopping 2 points. I hope you didn't start him. I know there's probably tons of people across the fantasy world who did. He was a suggested start on many websites. The matchup looked great on paper, but in the end, he struggled and struggled and struggled, and the Miami Dolphins got embarrassed. And as a Dolphins fan, it was not a fun game to watch. And then Andre Brown on the running backs. Andre Brown added another touchdown on 7 carries. He went for 65 yards in those 7 carries. Added 5 catches for 29 yards. Easily outplayed Ahmad Bradshaw, who fumbled another ball. The Giants are playing rather troublesome lately, highlighted by this 31-13 loss to the Bengals. But luckily the team has a bye, which should help out Eli, guys like that, get back in sync, get healthy. But I'm not too sure about Bradshaw, because as long as Andre Brown is running this well, they might as well split the carries. And then Vic Ballard didn't have the greatest game, only 12 rushes for 48 yards, 2 catches for 11 yards. Donald Brown just won't go away. It's so annoying. Every time we hear that he's going to be out, Vic Ballard is going to get the starting role. Donald Brown ends up being right in the mix, getting 10, 11 carries, which was the same thing this week, so that was pretty disappointing. And then Marcel Reese didn't have a huge game, but he touched the ball 20 times and totaled over 100 yards. He saw tons of action in the game as they were thrashed by the Ravens. He had to play catch up, which kind of helped him get his 7 catches for 56 yards. Taiwan Jones was pretty forgettable. McFadden is out for another week, so it looks like Marcel Reese is going to be a valuable start again in Week 11. Then on to the wide receivers. This is where I really messed it up. Brandon Lloyd was not worth a start. He only caught 5 balls for 5 catches for 45 yards. Didn't get that long TD I thought he might, or I'm hoping he'd have the kind of game that Sidney Rice and Torrey Smith had down below, but we'll get to that eventually. And then Detroit's Titus Young had a good game, 4 catches, only 35 yards, but he did snag that TD, so it made him a worthwhile start if you stuck him in there. And then Antonio Gates, tight end, he had 4 catches, 57 yards, and a TD. His first quarter touchdown and gave him pretty much everything he needed. So not a massive game, obviously, only 57 yards, but he did get the touchdown, so you can't be complaining about that, considering how much Antonio Gates hasn't really been that dynamic of late. So hopefully he keeps this up and keeps grabbing touchdowns going forward in the season. And then Anthony Fasano was a big bust versus Tennessee. It was the Miami game, and they got annihilated, not much to say. Anthony Fasano back to the waiver wire. And then for the sit-him side of the list, Michael Vick got hurt, so if you decide to sit him this week, it probably paid dividends for you, because he only got you 70 yards and a touchdown before leaving the game and being replaced by Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a bit of a sleeper going into next week. He has a great matchup versus the Redskins, but I'm not looking to start him unless I'm really desperate. I know that much. And then Matt Shaw versus Chicago, less than 100 yards. He actually threw for less yards than Arian Foster ran for. So if you went another direction than Matt Shaw, good for you, because it was a tough matchup and he played like it. And then at running back, Ryan Matthews, 17 carries, 57 yards, 22 yards receiving. The yardage total was what I expected. And since he's not adding really much in the passing game, there's really not much value to Ryan Matthews right now. He's not the elite level guy we thought he was going to be before the season, and it's not looking like it's going to change anytime soon. Matt Forte had a really rough game against the Texans. They are still yet to allow a running back to rush for a touchdown against them. He did get 16 carries, but failed to crack 40 yards. So although the guy is a stud, get him back in your lineup ASAP. And then Felix Jones cashed in this week when I didn't think he would. His yards total was kind of in the range I expected, but he caught 3 catches for 22 yards and a TD. I didn't really see that coming, but good for him. And there's rumors DeMarco Murray might not be back this weekend. It's a situation you're going to have to monitor if you have either one, if not both of those running backs. And then at wide receiver, like I said, this is where I messed it up. Torrey Smith, 2 catches, 67 yards, and 2 TDs. Sidney Rice, 2 catches, 44 yards, and 2 TDs. So among the 2 guys I suggest you to sit at wide receiver, they caught 4 passes for 4 touchdowns. I messed up this week. I don't really, no excuses. It was just bad decisions. Torrey Smith was the one I kind of thought he might be able to do that. Like I kind of figured Torrey Smith was going to have a mellow game in the sense that he only had 2 catches. I just didn't think they'd both go for touchdowns. And Sidney Rice, I figured he might have a big game, but I didn't think it was going to be 2 catches, 44 yards, 2 TDs in this kind of fashion. I just messed up with these 2 guys. No excuses. I messed up. And then at Coby Fleener, he was inactive, and his replacement is not really worth the pickup, if you ask me. Maybe this week due to he has a really good matchup. I think the guy's Dwayne Allen. But other than that, I would not be starting a Colts tight end anytime soon. All right, guys, that's it for my Week 10 Sit 'em Start 'em recap video. Hope the picks panned out for you. If you sat Torrey Smith or Sidney Rice because of me, I greatly apologize. That was a terrible decision on my part. And here's to a better Week 11, which will be posted tonight. Peace.